Hello, leaders. Dr. Patrick Jinks here, leadership and strategy coach and president of the Leader's Perspective. When you're coaching one of your leaders, which one of you is doing the heavier lifting? Cue it up. There's a classic Harvard Business Review article from 1974 called Who's Got the Monkey? The writer uses the monkey on your back as an analogy for who's carrying the responsibility for the work. For example, when an employee comes in and tells the leader about a problem they have, and the leader proceeds to either solve the problem on the spot, or worse yet, they tell the employee that they'll think about it and get back to them. What has essentially happened is that the employee has successfully transferred the monkey to the leader's back. The leader doesn't even know what happened. They just walk around with a bunch of monkeys on their back that their employees have been offloading on them all week long. And of course, effective delegation is one of the primary solutions to this problem, and that's what the article was about. The leader's job isn't to take on all of the monkeys. The leader's job is to help their team members successfully get the monkeys off their own backs, not by handing them off to someone else, but by doing the work or solving the problems themselves. Now, we've covered effective delegation in a couple of other episodes on this YouTube channel that you can look up later. This episode is not actually about delegating projects or bodies of work. It's more about delegating thought. One of the things we coach and train leaders to do is to be coaches themselves. And one of the most common missteps of a coach is to go into problem solving and advice mode. Believe it or not, I still grapple with that challenge myself, and I've been coaching for a couple of decades. We've said before that a coach does not answer the questions. If anything, the coach questions the answers. At a minimum, an effective coach asks questions that draw out and elevate the coachee's best thinking. So in today's episode, I'd like to share with you a couple of stories and a few tips on how to make sure your employees are not saddling you with the monkeys. Let's start with a story about an executive I was coaching a number of years ago. He was the CEO of an organization that was in growth mode. And I'm changing the scenario and names just a little bit to protect anonymity. But he had a talented leadership team. During one of our coaching sessions, he was lamenting the fact that one of his leaders had developed a pattern of coming to him with every problem or question she faced throughout the week. The fleet van isn't back yet and I need it for a delivery. What do I do? The printer broke down today. What do I do? We converted from one software platform to another and we lost some data. What do I do? He praised her talent and capabilities. He told me that she does a really good job in her department, but he just couldn't figure out why he couldn't get her to take initiative in coming up with her own solutions. After all, he didn't want to not be there. He didn't want to be unsupportive when his team needed him. He believed that as a leader, one of his jobs was to be there for his team. And he's not wrong. Be there for them. Just not the way he was doing it. Shortly after our coaching session, I'm sitting with him during a lunch break at one of his company's functions. And this team leader that he had told me about in our coaching session approached him with a quandary. She pulled out her cell phone and she showed him a text message explaining to him that one of the fleet vehicles had just broken down out of town. What should I tell the fleet manager? She asked. The CEO sighed with exasperation and put his forehead in his hand in thought for a moment, and then he looked back up at his leader and he said, "Don't worry about it. I'll call the fleet manager and I'll get him to pick up the driver and I'll call the tow company." She nodded in agreement and walked away. The CEO turned at me and he said, "See what I mean? She comes to me with every problem that comes her way." I simply responded, "Why do you think she does that?" He blew right by that question. "Well, you saw what happened, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah, I saw what she did. I also saw what you did. So again, why do you think she does this?" With that question, he looked at me with his blank stare while it hit him like a ton of bricks. "Holy moly," he says, "it's my fault." "What do you mean?" I said. "I have to stop solving her problems for her. But how do I do that?" Even though we were at lunch and this wasn't an official coaching session, I continued to coach him. I said, "Well, let's reimagine that scenario that just played out. At the point where she asked you what the solution was, what might you have done differently in that moment?" The funniest and most amazing thing was that he knew the answer instantly, and it was a good one. He said, I guess I could have asked her what she suggests. Great start, I said. What else? What do you mean, what else? I mean, what do you do for the leader in the long term? He thought for a minute, seemingly frustrated that I wasn't satisfied with one good answer. And then he proceeded to give me his plan of action for coaching his team leader. It was a great and rare moment where I was actually able to provide some coaching in the moment. I don't usually have that opportunity with my clients. How often do you find yourself with the monkey? How are you coaching your team to be empowered? I've known leaders who have a rule, by the way, for their team. You can come to me with any problem you need to, but you must bring at least one suggested solution with you. That's not a bad practice. Let me share with you another one that might even be easier. It's in the form of one simple question. What do you think it is? I'll give you a hint. I just asked it. What do you think? What do you think? Years ago, I was the CEO of a nonprofit, and my finance director walked into my office with a question. He needed a decision, and he was respectfully deferring the decision to me, the CEO. And I appreciated that. But as our chief financial officer, I was also counting on him to be smarter than me in the area of financial decisions. He had in his hand a contract renewal for a software company we were using. We had talked about maybe switching platforms, but now wasn't the time. He presented the decision to me in very simple terms. He said, well, we can renew the contract for 1 year or for 3 years. If we renew it for 3 years, the price per year goes down. So we're locked into a 3-year contract, but the yearly cost goes down. Which one do you want to do? Now, this was a perfectly fair question, and I happened to know that this leader was extremely respectful and deferential, but I also knew he had the answer. He wasn't the kind of leader to walk into my office with a question like that he didn't already know the answer to or have come up with some idea. He was simply putting the monkey on my back. His motive was pure, to be deferential, but nonetheless, he was giving me the monkey. The next 4 words out of my mouth were magical. What do you think? I asked. And with those simple 4 words, I effortlessly and respectfully handed him his monkey back. And he didn't hesitate. Well, the reality is we're not going to be in a position to make a platform switch in the foreseeable future as much as we'd like to. Really no sense in doing a year-to-year contract that's going to cost us more in the long term. I would suggest going ahead and re-upping for another 3 years. That's probably right around the time when we'll be ready to make a switch. I said, that makes a lot of sense. I'm good with that decision if you are. He nodded confidently and left the room. Now, I don't know about you, but I always wanted to surround myself with people smarter than I am in their respective areas. For me, that wasn't very hard to do. How are you empowering your team leaders to be true leaders? Do you create a space where they can lead in all directions, down, up, and sideways? Sometimes your team members need to lead you. Think about it. If they have the word chief in their title, then they are the top officer in their field. If they have the name director in their title, they should be expected to be doing some directing. Try to be hyper aware the next time a team member comes to you for answers or solutions or decisions. How will you use that moment to develop their decision-making and solution-finding skills? How will you artfully play the game of who's got the monkey? That's one leader's perspective for this week. If you would like to explore ways that the leader's perspective can help you or your organization achieve greater clarity, simplicity, or alignment in your mission work, you can reach out and schedule a free discovery call with me by clicking the link that's always in the video description below these videos. And as always, if you're not already a subscriber to our channel, click the subscribe button below. And make sure you also click the bell icon so that you'll be instantly notified when new episodes arrive. We'll see you here on the next episode. Lead on.